Ernest Holmes, for me, he is very clear and also uses a lot of words. So for me, that reading is oneness and otherness. Those are the things that we experience often, oneness and otherness. We're either in oneness, and as he's talking about, we experience this oneness to really to the degree that we allow ourselves to, and we experience otherness to the degree that we allow ourselves to. I'm just gonna, I'll leave that, and then I'll do my talk, and we can come back to that in dialogue, which is one of my favorite things to do. So I want to tell you about an experience I had about 2 weeks ago. And I usually don't talk about my experiences because I never want anyone to feel like that anyone should have an experience like my experience. And I was telling Sherry, just like when I read, you know, one of my favorite books is Anita Moorjani's book, she had a near-death experience. You know, I don't want to feel like I have to have a near-death experience to know what she knew. You know, we never have to have an experience that anyone else had, but she came back with a message that certainly rings true for me. You know, so I don't have to have the experience, but the truth that someone is bringing back. But this experience was very powerful for me, and I just wanted to share it with you. About 2 weeks ago, I got it was a Saturday, and I got a text from my sister-in-law to go. She said my brother and his family and my sister and her family were going to that brother's house. And impromptu Saturday afternoon gathering. The weather was beautiful. He lives on the Intercoastal Waterway, so it's beautiful dock, and it's just, it was going to be beautiful. And I was like, oh, I just have to walk the dog, feed the dog, and I'll come right over to watch the sunset because the sunset's earlier now. Well, I feed the dog and I'm getting ready to go, and I get a text and it says, we're going out on the boat. Be right back, because they have a boat. And I said, oh, should I not come? Because the two things you have to know about my family is, one, they're all extreme extroverts, which anyone who knows me knows I'm not. And two, they drink a lot. They love, Saturday night is a great reason for a party. And there's 3 or 4, you know, restaurants and bars, and there's 6 or 8 or 10 people that they know that live on the waterway. So they might find somebody who has a cocktail going on, and I might not see them. So I asked myself before, as I'm getting in the car with the dog, I said, well, if they don't come back, am I going to be okay? You know, if they go to a bar and say, here, we're here, am I going to go join them? I just went through a few scenarios in my head, and I was like, no, no, yes, no. And I decided I wanted to go sit on the dock and enjoy the sunset no matter what happened. Like, I was open to all the possibilities, but this was, you know, I wanted to get in the car, drive 5 minutes and go watch that particular sunset. So I did. And had the dog. I mean, it was a beautiful evening. The sun set perfectly. It was warm. As soon as the sun went down, I had a little jacket, you know, boaters going by, the fish were jumping, the herons were feeding on the fish. I mean, these egrets, you know, were flying around. It was, and it's a swamp across the Intercoastal. There's no houses. So it's just so beautiful. It was a beautiful sunset. And they didn't come back. And that's, like I said, that was a pretty big possibility, which I had already considered. It's my family. I know them. I've known them a long time. So as I'm walking out of the car with my dog, many of you know my little dog Tabasco, we had a great evening. And I hear this voice, and it says, why are you smiling? You're sad. And I was like, because I was like, I'm not just smiling, I'm kind of singing a little tune, you know, I'm just like, do. And it's like, I'm sad. And this is an interesting voice. It's not a voice. It's hard to explain the experience, but this is the voice I pay attention to when I'm writing. Like, this is the voice that that teaches me things. It's telling me something. It's asking me to pay attention to something. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm not happy? And it's like, you're sad. And I'm like, am I? Am I? And I was like, okay. And I hear the words, they left you. They didn't come back for you. They don't love you. And I was like, well, now I'm sad. I mean, what? And it was so like, it just sunk me right into those words, those feelings. Can any of you guys relate to that? It's interesting, isn't it? And I was like, wow, what is this? And those words, and I could see, I was watching myself say things like, they always do this. They don't care. They like I could just hear sort of this cacophony of sort of blame and stuff of how this has happened before. If this were blah, 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 they would have come back. And I'm watching this though. So the witness consciousness is very interesting because I'm watching it. I'm feeling the pain. I'm hearing what I would normally say in the voices in my head. And I'm like, wait a minute. This pain is not that. This is not that. And I hear this voice says, no, it's your dad. He left you. He's not coming back. He doesn't love you. And I'm like, wow, really? I've worked on this, man. I've got to feel this. And I'm like, so I hear, and again, the voice starts to, some blame and some judgment there that literally I have worked on, I've paid attention to that in the past. Like, why is this coming up? And I'm like, no, this pain, it's not that it didn't start with my dad. And I hear, oh, it's your parents. I'm like, no. And then I hear the word ancient. This pain is ancient. Mm. And I'm like, ancient, like, okay. And it starts to show me, and I'm going to say like lifetimes of pain. I'm like, no, listen, I'm not going there. I'm not listening. Just show me the beginning. What is this pain? What is this? And I just rested in it. And by now I'm crying, but it's like the witness, the watching, the voices. And it was like the pain of feeling separated from your source. It's the pain of not feeling connected to God, not feeling oneness and wholeness and love. And that made sense. That was this pain. And in that moment, it was like, it's my pain. It's not because of anything they did. They meaning anybody, everybody in my entire life. And in theory, lifetimes, this ancient idea. But with my other experiences of time, I know it's all happening at one time. It's all one. So I'm like, the pain of feeling separated from God, separated from source, separated from each other. So in that reading, it's otherness or oneness. And so I was like, wow. Now remember, I was feeling good. I had a great evening. I had already made the decision that there was oneness in what had actually happened. But I was experiencing this incredible experience of reliving sort of all the times that I had gone through this pain. I realized it was my pain. I'm the only one who could feel separated from my source. And I'm the only one who cannot feel separated from source. I can stand in wholeness and oneness because I and God are always one. It's God, and God doesn't come and go, leave and come back. I do. I do. I can stand in my infinite awareness and infinite beingness, or I can look at what's happening outside of me and say, I am separate from that. I am not loved. I am not lovable. I am not worthy. They are doing this to me. It was so powerful. So first, what happened was this pain of seeming separation. And I found, like, by exploring and being willing to, even though it didn't even happen that night, but there was a voice, the teacher in my head was saying, pay attention, I got to show you this. I got to show you this. And I'm imagining it's because, we live in a finite world with things going on around us all the time. Ram Dass, and here it is, Thanksgiving going into Christmas. Ram Dass said, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family. Right? Because things come up and those feelings, that original pain might come up again as we feel less than or unworthy or judged. But who is doing that? It's my pain. They didn't cause it. And I would not have felt it, which in fact I didn't feel it until the lesson. But if you're standing in oneness, you cannot feel separate. If you're standing in oneness, you cannot feel, somebody says something horrible about you, you're like, it like slides off you because you're in love, you're in joy, you're in worthiness, you're in peace, you're in wholeness. People are saying things that doesn't resonate with us when we are standing in wholeness. When we are standing in otherness, we're affected by all of that. So first, there was this there was a recognition that there was this pain, and that the pain was of seeming separation, and it was mine. It wasn't the cause. No one else is causing this pain but me. And what is the solution to that? Stepping into oneness, wholeness, peace, joy, love. How do we do that? Many of us learn that we can step into that through a moment of breathing, through a moment of meditation, through a moment of reflection, through a moment of gratitude. But it really, for most of us, it's taking that moment, maybe stepping back from what might be happening and taking that moment. And second, it was I almost entitled this talk, Pain, No Blame, because it showed me this was painful. It was almost like a life review for all the times I had blamed so many people for my pain. I had blamed people in relationships. I had blamed parents. I had blamed siblings. I had blamed those closest to me for not filling that hole that is my sense of separation. So I got to see that how many times I blamed somebody, and I was like, oh, please forgive me. I'm so sorry. This is my pain and no one else's. I was assigning blame to so many people in the situations in my life for causing this pain. But the pain is caused by my thoughts that I am a separate being, that my God has forsaken me, and that I am unworthy. So it is the remembrance, the practice, the dialogues, the coming together to remember the truth of our being dissolves that pain instantly. There is no residue of that pain. When we're standing in wholeness or oneness, there is only whole, one, joy, peace, love. Now, I'm going to put in a disclaimer here. That does not mean that there aren't situations, events, and circumstances and relationships that we will need to change in our life. There are many over the years where I have felt it was too difficult with the energy or the values or the relationship agreements that had happened, that I couldn't stand and stay in my wholeness under the situation. So I'm not saying that we don't change things. But, let's face it, we can't change our family. Go home for a week, Christmas is coming, whatever's happening. We can absolutely remember the truth of our being, standing in wholeness and oneness, regardless of someone else's energy, their vibration, their beliefs, their values, their ideals. We can stand in the truth. I'm here to tell you. Doesn't mean we don't change situations, but we can stand true in the nature of our own being. And that way, any actions that we do take come from wholeness. They come from self-love, self-appreciation, remembering the truth of our being. So the actions aren't reactions. The actions aren't resisting. They're not judgments. They're not blame or shame. The actions come from love and joy. And they come from a need to surround ourselves with more love and more joy, the love that we deserve, the joy that we deserve, right? So when we take action, the action is informed by love and not the pain of separation or the blaming of others for our pain. Ernest Holmes said, people with a spiritual self-reliance have a deep conviction that they are attuned to an infinite intelligence. And we can use the word infinite love, infinite joy, infinite compassion, and that they are one with the all-knowing spirit. A knowledge of this truth is necessary if we desire to develop an understanding that will cause us to be positive without aggressiveness, that will make us sure of ourselves without egotism, and that will make us strong in action without becoming intolerant or blaming others. He said, first of all, there must be an awareness of the presence of God. Next, and equally necessary, is faith in the spiritual self. And what he's saying is our self with a capital S, who and what we are, our true spiritual nature. The faith to which we are referring is not a faith in an isolated self. That's what I was being shown. The isolated self which struggles through life alone, but faith in an inner knowledge, the truth of our being. Spiritual self-reliance comes only to those who have a deep awareness of the availability of the creative spirit, God, through the medium of their spiritual self, their oneness with the presence of God. So the third part of this sort of vision that I got, this is the processing part that I had to really think about. And that was to explore. So the pain comes up, and I could have just said, I'm not in pain, I'm dancing a jig, man. I had that great sunset, but there's a voice teaching me something, telling me something. Look at this. And I can tell you, anyone who knows me knows I don't really want to explore pain. Give me something beautiful to explore. I'm all about it. But first, we explore the self. Who is feeling the pain? Who is feeling the pain? What we can say is feeling the pain. So first, we explore the self. What is feeling this pain? Because when we do that, we are guided to stand in wholeness and oneness, right? We're guided to the truth of our being, our inner self, capital S, self. That place where the presence of God is, who and what we are. The two are one. We are merged. So when we explore first, what is feeling the pain, the anger, the frustration, the resentment. We step into our wholeness, our natural state of being. And then, if we are called to, we can explore the pain the next time before blaming, before assigning a cause. We can look deeply and ask ourselves, is this that original pain? You know, in Christianity, it's called the fall. They use such negative terms, you know. It's not a fall from grace. It's not a fall from God. It is a way for God, the infinite beingness of God, to become finite. If God couldn't be finite, I wouldn't, you know, love my dog. I would have to love all dogs, or the concept of dog. There wouldn't be the finite thing, the finite relationship. I wouldn't have my siblings. I'd just be infinite. But in the finite, when we become finite, we veil the infinite. So we step into the infinite. We remember the truth of our being. And we explore the finite, the relationships. Sometimes there's lack, there's less than, there's hurricanes, there's you know, events, there's death, there's grief, there's loss, there's COVID. And so we, as our infinite being, explore the finite. So again, at first explore the self who is feeling the pain, then explore that pain. Is it real? Is it permanent? Or is it just a thought of separation? Is it a thought that we are not whole, perfect, and complete right now, that we are not connected? And when we really explore, and I mean this with all of my heart, when we truly explore, we realize, we remember that we are love, joy, and peace. And that we are whole, perfect, and complete. And there is within us that which has never been hurt, harmed, or endangered. Yeah. So that's all there at the same time. And it's so beautiful. We can think our pain is real, or we can think our divinity is real. And we are right. The creative law that we think into will always make us right. Jesus said, it is done to you as you believe. Not if you believe correctly. It is done to you as you believe. And the Course in Miracles reminds us that nothing real can be harmed or endangered or broken or changed. Nothing unreal exists. So I'll just close with that reminder that well, I'll use a quote from Ernest Holmes. He said, we must come to believe that at the center of our lives, there is a wholeness, and we should think of the mind as the door through which it enters. So we can change our mind. Whatever is happening, we can choose again. Ernest Holmes says, therefore, we should be very careful to guard what comes into our mind from the opinions of others, and I'll add from the actions of others, from the events and circumstances and situations in our lives. He says to regulate what comes into us from any source. And like I said, when you're going to see family, sometimes we can't regulate them, but we can stand in truth and allow the truth to filter whatever is happening out there, so that what comes in is a remembrance of oneness and wholeness, and what leads or goes out from us is love, joy, compassion, acceptance, all from the remembrance of the truth of our being. So this week we can affirm that today I stand in the truth of my being, and I watch as all pain and all blame dissolve. That can be our affirmation together. And because we're running a little late, because I think we're just going to talk together. I would love to just open this up into a dialogue.